What's going on, everybody? All right, today is Wednesday. It is 1 week away from the National. 1 week from now is when the National opens, and I'm pretty excited. I will be later in the next week. I'm not sure which day, but in the next week, I will be doing a quick video, not a long one. I know. Insert joke there. I'm going to be doing a video sharing kind of my plans. When am I arriving? When am I leaving from the National? What are my plans that I'm doing? What's my strategy? What are some of my targets? I think it's fun. If anything, what it does is it forces me to kind of get my thoughts organized and make sure that I've got my agenda and I'm got everything going like it needs to be going heading into it. So I will be doing that in the next few days. I just don't know which day because I have a lot of things that are going to be jammed into these next few days. Later this week, I will be releasing the MidLife Community Show and Tell pickups from June. Lots of submissions, well over 100 submissions again this month, with some of not just the biggest cards we've seen yet, but some of the most beautiful and impressive. So excited to share that. That will post either Friday or Saturday. Next week, probably things are going to be a little bit not as kind of planned out as normal because I will be posting at least 2 videos from the National, showing the National, showing my pickups, showing probably my dad's pickups. All of the fun times will be included. There will be at least 2 of those, maybe 3. We'll have to see how it goes and how much time I have in the evenings to do some editing. I'm planning on late each night posting a recap for that day. That's kind of tentatively the plan, but again, it's going to be hard to know how this is all going to be because I don't have my normal stuff. I don't have my computer at home. I don't have all of my normal resources because I'm going to be in a hotel. So I will, but look forward to that. So again, next week might be a little bit different than normal. Forgive me if I'm not on my normal regimen, but it will be worth it because it will be fun and there will definitely be some awesome footage from the National. I'll be showing off a bunch of dealer tables. I'll be showing off a bunch of awesome cards and displays and things. So keep an eye out for that starting 1 week from today. Now, before I get into the Q&A, I had a couple of really nice care packages sent this week. So I wanted to share a couple of those things. First, my guy Antonio, who has sent me a couple of gifts in the past. Super nice guy. Wrote me a super sweet note as well. Sent me a few Nettles cards, including some Nettles cards that I'm missing. Some Nettles cards that I need for my Nettles run. I continue to try to get, this one's signed. I continue to try to get my Nettles collection organized and fill in all of the spots. I'm trying to do a full run of Topps and O-Pee-Chee. So anyway, I'll be filling in some empty spots with those. So thank you for those, my friend. And then my guy Mike, Say Hey 24. Again, these guys are both longtime supporters of the channel, and even multiple times have they submitted their pickups for the show and tell. In fact, I briefly glanced at the list of some of the submissions and some of the names and a few of the cards. I haven't even been through all of them. And my guy Mike of Say Hey 24 had a submission for the month. So look for that here later in the week. And he sent me 2 Roger Craig cards. And these McDonald's scratch-off cards are both unscratched. And there's the blue and the green version. So those are very cool, as you know, or maybe you don't. My all-time favorite football player of all time, Roger Craig. My childhood guy was Roger Craig. I would be out on the playground at recess when we weren't supposed to be playing tackle football, and I would absolutely be doing the high knees, which made it hard for people to tackle me. Roger Craig was my guy. First all-purpose back at, well, maybe not the first, but probably the first premier receiving back. Guy was a stud. Absolute stud. Anyways, all right, to our Q&A questions this week. First one right here. My guy over at Jayhawker Vintage Cards says, another insightful video, Greg. Question for next week. Nobody knows for sure where the various aspects of the vintage hobby will be a year from now, let alone 5 years from now. Just for fun, what are your predictions of where various aspects of the vintage hobby will be 5 years from now? For example, will AI have completely taken over grading? Will grading companies become more specialized, including a major grading company that specializes only in vintage cards? Will sports cards only keep losing ground to card shows that contain Pokemon and TCG to the point that pure sports card only shows no longer exist? I've observed that hardcore vintage collectors seem to move along the path of collecting the golden era, 50s to 70s, then into pre-war, and then onto rare issues, autographed cards, or oddball cards. What will be the move that they go to next? I'm sure there are hundreds of other aspects you can think of that your followers would like your opinion on. Thanks. All right, so this is a perfect example of probably why I should do some preparation for my responses for when I do these videos. Because this is there were multiple things in this question, and I don't want to leave anything out. My buddy Jim last week submitted a question. It had a whole bunch of different parts to it about ways to leverage money and funds and assets to go into cards. And I had this long response, and then in the comments, he was like, thanks, Greg, but you didn't really answer the question. And that's part of the problem with how I don't take notes and everything is stream of consciousness. I mean, I pick the question, I don't really think about the question that much, then I read the question, and then I respond. So this is all kind of off the cuff, and it's one of the reasons why a lot of times I might misspeak or say things, and people throw rotten fruit and tomatoes at the screen, which is fine. So I'm gonna look down at this one where I have it written a couple of times to make sure I'm doing a decent job of trying to answer all the questions. The first thing that just popped into my head was the Pokemon part. I don't think Pokemon's going away. I think Pokemon might have a correction. I don't think it's going away, and I don't think that the subculture of card shows having lots of Pokemon is going anywhere. I don't think that is going anywhere. So do I expect there to continue to be at least the same amount of Pokemon at baseball card shows? At least. That would be my prediction. For better or worse, whatever you think of that, I mean, I like going to card shows to see sports cards and non-sports cards, not TCG cards, but I know other people do. So who am I to say what they should and shouldn't do? I think we might start to see some delineation where some card shows are being advertised as sports card shows, and some of the promoters might try to limit Pokemon, but a lot of the Pokemon dealers, I think, pay the bills because they show up. So that might be hard to do. We'll see. I don't know. As far as grading companies, that was part of the question. Do I think there will be a vintage only and a modern only? Maybe. I continue to think that I don't necessarily think that the SGC label is going away, but I do feel like we will continue to see PSA kind of water down SGC to the point where the benefits that we used to have from our SGC submissions are no longer benefits. I don't think there will be a major price difference at some point between the two. I think that the turnaround time will continue to get closer and closer between the two. SGC might be a little boutique company that kind of exists but isn't really a major player. It's mostly for, will they become vintage only? Kind of, maybe. I think that that's certainly a possibility. I still struggle with, will SGC be gone? I tend to think they won't be gone, but they will be gone as we know it. If they go away, if SGC gets absorbed into PSA, then I think CGC will have a major opportunity to take a major chunk of the market share. Or maybe another company jumps in, somebody with some deep pockets that goes after that part of the market. We'll see. I don't know. Now, as far as the cards themselves, which is the piece that I'm most interested in of the question, is where do I see cards from the different eras? What the vintage card market, what's going to happen? I think that people are going to continue to look for the obscure. I don't think that, I think that people like having cards that other people have. They're okay with that, but they'd rather have cards that other people don't have. And when you have these big sets that have, thousands, there's 10,000 graded Bob Gibson rookie cards, right? So if you own one, there are 9,999 or however many other people who have one. Now that's cool. Don't get me wrong. I'd like to have a Bob Gibson rookie card. But I think that there's a growing segment of the community that's going to continue to want to have things that other people may not have. And I don't think people are going to buy stuff they don't like necessarily just because other people don't have it. But I think things like the Dandy set, I think that the Dandy set has a lot of legs. I think that the, Red Heart has some legs. Dandy more, because Dandy is much rarer than the Red Heart set. And I'm just talking 50s right now. There are a fair amount, as much as I like the Redman cards, there are a fair amount of Redman cards. So I don't really see those suddenly going bonkers. But I do think that some of these smaller releases are going to see the biggest increases in demand and price. Because, sure, people want to have mantles. But a lot of people have a 1961 mantle. Not a lot of people have a Dandy mantle. So I just see people continuing to find the unique thing instead of the common thing. People, Cybertrucks. I know, out of left field, Cybertrucks. Let's face it. Does anybody like the look of a Cybertruck? Does anybody like the look of a Cybertruck? I don't want to put my value on other people, but when I see those things, I just kind of roll my eyes. But when you see one, it catches your attention. It's like, oh, what's that guy have? That's not something you see every day. Now, out in California, I think you probably see a lot more of those things than you do in other parts of the country. But if you're driving a Camry or you're driving an Accord, it's kind of invisible. If you're driving a white, Toyota Highlander, you don't drive down the street and go, oh my gosh, check out that white Toyota Highlander. People just don't really even notice it. It's kind of invisible. But a Cybertruck, people go, huh. Now, some people like it. A lot of people think it's why? But it's different. And I think a lot of people like what's different. What's different is sometimes interesting. And interesting is a conversation piece. Hey, interesting is interesting. That might be the quote of the month so far. Interesting is interesting. And so people, I think, are going to be more and more drawn to interesting. Now, that doesn't mean that a bunch of people are going to run out and buy a bunch of pirate cards now, because they're different and they're unique. A few people might, but I don't think a lot of people will. But things like, Mickey Mantle and Larry Doby, those guys are people that a lot of collectors want to collect. But how many people have a 59 Doby, 59 Topps Doby, and how many have a Dandy Doby? Dramatically different. It's sort of like the whole autographed playing day card thing that my buddy Tony, Southern Collector's into. During his wig-inspired Mike Petty odd couple rant over the weekend on the Four Collectors Hobby Palooza on Saturday night, he cited there are tons and tons and tons of different cards, like he was mentioning one of the Jackie Robinson cards that he has signed. And he said, but the number that have been signed is so much fewer. It adds a level of rarity when it's not the common issue. Now, for me, I still want a lot of those common issue cards because they're iconic cards that I've wanted for a long, long time. And I've gone, oh my gosh, that's a Hank Aaron rookie card. I want a Hank Aaron rookie card. And he has multiple cards from that year. But I want a 54 Topps Hank Aaron rookie card. It's a beautiful card. I want that card. But I also understand why people might look at some of the more regional releases or food issue cards and go, that's the Hank Aaron I want. Because if you go in the National, which I will be a week from today, there are going to be a lot of Hank Aaron rookie cards in the room. I'd say maybe, 140. But how many of some of the other, like Johnston Cookies, Hank Aaron's will be in the room? Right? So that's kind of my thought, is that people are going to continue to go down that route. And I think that that's where we're going to see the biggest jumps in value. But again, this is not an investment channel. This is just a for fun channel. We're just talking. We're just taking stuff and throwing it at the wall and seeing what sticks. Some of you think I'm crazy. You might be right. You might be wrong. That's definitely up for debate. But don't go out and make a single purchase because of anything I say off the top of my head as I sit on my bed and look at my phone. So just kind of my take. But could I be completely wrong? I could be 100% wrong. Absolutely, that's possible. My buddy Lou sent me a text and said, I have a good question for your show. Greg, they say cash is king. I agree it is. So with that being said, do you think TSA will bother you or ask you questions if they notice you have, say, $20K on you and ask why so much cash? So would you need to explain that you're going to a card show to buy cards? So they hopefully say, okay, cool. So have you ever taken this much cash to a show that you had to get on a plane, or would you take just a little cash and the rest in PayPal or Zelle in case you make a bigger card purchase? Man, my buddy Lou texted me this the other day, and Lou's a great guy, and we text from time to time, and I'm looking forward to seeing you, buddy, at the National. Now, when this is not Lou Rock, this is a different Lou. This is Lou from New York area, not Lou Rock from Lou Rock TV. Although, hey, what's up, Lou Rock TV too? this question is interesting, and as usual, I think that the answer for me is, well, it depends. It depends on your situation. Now, first of all, I don't anticipate TSA stopping you because you're carrying a lot of cash. And if you are carrying a lot of cash, I don't think that there's like anything they could do about it. Like, they're looking for devices when you go through there. They're not looking for personal items like money. I suppose that it could catch their attention and they might say, "What's with the cash?" And you say, "I'm headed to Chicago to do business." And then I would think that would be the end of it. So I don't anticipate that being an issue. I know a lot of people who have traveled with a lot more cash than I travel with. And I've never heard of anybody having any problems with that. If you have, down in the comments below, share your experience and maybe some advice on how to prepare for that. Now, the biggest part of the question, I think, comes from when you're buying. So if you show up to the National and you've got cash money versus you're going to wire money through some, whether a PayPal, Zelle, whatever, I think a lot of dealers would probably rather have cash for somewhat obvious reasons. Now, I would encourage people to pay their taxes. I would encourage people to follow the law. But I know that there are people who see things a little differently, maybe. I don't know. But I do think in a lot of cases, cash could get you the best deal. So does that mean you should carry cash? I think it depends on your situation, okay? If you're a 14-year-old kid, I don't think you should show up to the National with $10,000 in your pocket. I don't think that's a good idea. And I'm just being real. I'm just being straight here. I'm just being authentic. I'm not trying to place any sort of judgment. If you're a person in a position that is better suited to defend yourself, if you're a guy who goes to the gym twice a day, you're 28 years old, and you are a recently retired NFL player, I think if you wanted to carry around $20,000 in cash in your pocket, that's probably not going to be much of a problem for you, especially at this National where the hotels are across the street and you're not traveling very far with that cash. If you are a person who is less capable of defending yourself, okay, I'll use my dad. Okay, I'll use my dad. My dad is 75 years old. Dad, you're 75. He's like, yeah, I know, Greg. No kidding. No kidding. I know I'm 75. So my 75-year-old dad, if he were going to the National by himself, traveling from parking lot to the terminal, from the terminal to the hotel to the show, walking around, I would encourage my dad not to walk around with a ton of cash. Being with me might make it where I would say it's not an awful idea to walk around with a little bit more cash because there's two of us. But I still don't think it's a great idea. When people get distracted, when people get in different advanced ages and things, they are maybe not as sharp as that they think that they are or were. And Dad, I'm not picking on you. I'm just saying in general. But I think that I would never, okay, here, I guess here's my answer. I would never carry more cash in my pocket than if something happened and I lost it all, it wouldn't be a really big deal. If somebody had $10,000 in their pocket, there are people that will be at the show, and if $10,000 was taken out of their pocket, that would be a major problem in their life. There are other people who will be at the show that if $10,000 was taken out of their pocket, pickpocketed, wouldn't be that big of a deal. I mean, it would suck, but it wouldn't really affect the trajectory of their life. So I think your ability to defend yourself plays into it. I think that the amount of how your life would be affected if the money were taken would be a part of it. I think that how sharp you are and how potentially forgetful you might be would all play into it. So I think that there are a lot of varying factors. I think that most of the big card dealers, if you're a person who's going to show up to the National and buy a $40,000 card, I think that those dealers kind of understand somebody's not going to open a briefcase with hundreds in it. I kind of think that's to be expected. I kind of think they're assuming that's going to be a wire transfer of some sort. So I think bringing a little bit of cash, and then I think a major, massive, huge purchase, I would plan on wiring the money. And maybe some combination thereof. But I never would bring more money than if literally it disappeared out of my pocket. My life would change much. And I also think that it's better to be safe than sorry. Especially as over the years, we've seen different incidents at different card shows and different events where stuff happens. So for me, I would tend to err on the side of caution. Now, one of the blessings of being someone like me who doesn't have that big of a budget for the show or for cards in general is I don't really have to worry about this. But a lot of people who are going to be traveling to the National do. That's my advice. I think I did a decent job answering it, at least maybe gave some people some things to think about. But if you're making a really big purchase, I would expect to wire a lot of that money. Electronically transfer a lot of that money. For other things, medium to small things, I would probably have some cash on me. But not more than you could afford to lose out on.
This next one says, my question for you is if you became a grader at PSA for a month, can you imagine how different your opinion on card grading would be for your videos? I realize the companies make you sign contracts on transparency, but it would definitely affect your outlook in so many ways. Just being let behind the curtain for a little bit.
All right, if I became a grader at PSA for a month, I think a lot of things would change for me. A lot of things would change. And I know a lot of people have jokes that they're yeah, this would change that. No, I'm being serious. I think a lot of things would change. I think one of the disconnects that I have with PSA is that I look at cards as a collector. PSA, they tend to look at cards like a CSI investigator or like a scientist. They look at it with no emotion. They look at it with a certain rubric of checking box, marking numbers, where does it fall. They're not looking at it like oh, that's a nice looking card. They look at it as immediately they're looking for what's wrong. So I've been married for over 20 years. And when I was shopping for my wife's wedding ring, I found the band I wanted. It was time to find the center stone. And I was looking at the center stones, and I'm looking at these two diamonds in the case, side by side. And one of them was noticeably bigger than the other one. The diamond I got my wife was just over 1 carat for the center stone. And there was this other one, it was like 1.3 carats or 1.4 carats. And I'm like, man, that's a lot bigger. And then I looked at the price, and the price of the bigger one, the 1 point, we'll call it 3 carat one, was less than the one that I ended up buying, which was like 1.03 carats or something. It was less, but it was way bigger. And I'm sitting there and I'm going, help me understand. And they're like, they start going through this whole, they pull out this little pamphlet, and there's these C's, right? There's carats, there's clarity, there's color, I don't remember. It was 20 years ago. And they go, here, look. And they pulled the two out, and they put them under this like microscope looking thing. They go, look at this one, the one they ended up buying. And I looked at it, I'm like, oh, that thing's beautiful. It looks great. And then they got this other one, and they put it in there, the bigger one. And they put it in there, and you could see like this black, kind of like, looked like a speck of sand in the diamond. Black though. And they go, you see that? And I go, yeah, of course. And it said, that's why. That's the reason that this one is more expensive, because this is actually a better specimen than that one. Now, if you're just tuning in, what? Why are we talking about diamonds? This is what I believe. I believe this is how PSA grades cards. They don't grade them from the collector point of view. They grade them from a scientific point of view. And if they see a little, a little wrinkle that is impossible to see from the naked eye, but under their heavy magnification, they see it, then it docks the grade. So we would then see the card and we go, how is this a 4? There's no way this is a 4. This should be a 7. And from an eye appeal perspective, that card might look a lot better than some higher graded cards. And I think that sort of like with the diamond situation, they're looking at cards differently than we look at them. Now, I know we all like to kind of beat up on PSA. And PSA, I think they do a lot right. And I think they do some things wrong. And I think that there are mistakes when there are grades that are given. As we know, because otherwise you wouldn't, crack it and send it back in and get a different grade. You wouldn't get that if it was perfect. It's not perfect. But I think that the way that these people have been trained and the way that PSA grades is they grade more specifically to the scientific qualities of a card. There are some collectors that are on board with that. There are some collectors that are more about those different elements. And there are other collectors that want a card that just looks nice from the naked eye when they're looking at it with their collection. And so I think that the biggest thing that would be different is if I worked at PSA for a month and I went through their training, whatever that looks like. I know people are joking and training. No, seriously though, if you went through their training and you went through the process of grading a bunch of cards, I think that one of the biggest differences is you'd start to look at things differently than I look at them right now as a collector. I don't have a ton of interest in looking at cards scientifically. but there are other people who do. And that's fine. That is absolutely fine if that's how other people want to collect. At this moment, for me, I just want a card that when I look at it, I go, that thing's a pretty nice little specimen. That thing looks good to my naked eye. I have cards that have lower grades than I think that they should have. But you know what I've never done? I've never looped them. I've never taken out a loop and looked them over to try to find what's wrong with it. I've never done that. I've never taken a card that I thought was undergraded and just searched and searched. Once I buy the card, I just enjoy it for what it is. I enjoy it for what it is. I do not try to find problems with it. But that's what a grader is supposed to do. And that's a completely different perspective. So, did I answer the question? I don't know. I hope so. I hope so. But those are my thoughts after reading that.
This next one says, great questions and responses as always, Greg. Grateful for you, brother. My question for you next week, if you were to evaluate your current collection, what do you think your collection reflects on for you? As you think about future pickups, do you think this will change at all? What do you want your collection to reflect about you?
So I've had a few friends who have said, before you really build out your collection, one of the first things you should do is kind of define, what do you want your collection to be? What do you want it to represent? What is the ultimate goal of your collection? And then all of the pieces that you add to your collection should be in sync with that goal, with that view in mind at all times. And I think that that's really good advice, and I've never done it. I've never done it. So even though that concept has been presented to me many times, and the question that you're asking me has been presented to me many times, I don't have a great answer. And so I'm going to kind of try over the next few minutes here, wrap around in my head what I think my collection might be. I am a visual person, which I've mentioned many times, and I like pretty things. I went up to the greater Lake Tahoe area, about an hour north of Tahoe, this past week with my wife and some other family. And when I was up there, I went on a hike. And I was taking some pictures with my phone. And I'm like, man, this is just beautiful. This landscape, this location, these views are stunning. They're stunning. And I love to see things that my eye feels are good looking. Now, it's possible that one person would look at a scenery and not like it as much as me. Just like when I look at a card, I go, man, that is a good looking card. And somebody else might look at it and go, not good looking. And I mean, I think that the Sandy Koufax, for example, I think the Sandy Koufax rookie card is a beautiful card. I don't know what it is about it. It's a beautiful card. And I remember I was on a live stream with Clemente Collector and a few guys. And I was like, I kind of misspoke and I go, he just looks like this young Italian kid. And everyone's like, he's Jewish, Greg. And I'm like, I know he's Jewish, but he looks like a New Yorker. And he does. Like the young Sandy Koufax looks like this young New Yorker. And there's something cool about that. There's something cool about that image to me. Same thing with, a lot of cards from that set, to be honest. The Jackie Robinson, from the 55 top set too. Just a beautiful card. And it's not a coincidence that I have both of those cards. I have them because I like cards that I think are pretty, that are beautiful. Not just that I like the player. That's part of it. I want cards of players that I like and that I collect. But I also want cards that I like the looks of. Now, there are other Sandy Koufax cards that I wouldn't really want because I don't really like the image. To be honest with you, I really like Willie Mays. I know some people don't. I like Willie Mays. I'm a Northern California guy. Willie Mays, we used to see him at shows a lot. Like Willie Mays was signed all the time. How I ended up without ever getting Willie Mays' autograph is I have no idea how that all happened. But a lot of Willie Mays' cards aren't particularly great looking cards. They're just not. And because of that, I don't really have a lot of Willie Mays cards. I will get some because it's Willie Mays. So I like black and white. I know a lot of people don't. I like the 39 play balls. I like the 48 Bowmans. I like those sets a lot. And I like things that I like the looks of. But I also like sets that are kind of recognizable because there's a nostalgia in there. And the nostalgia is that I remember as a kid going to shows and seeing, oh my gosh, that's the 52 top set. That's the set that has the mantle, the 33 Gowdy set. Oh my gosh, I remember looking in cases. Look at that Jimmy Fox. Look at, Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, a bunch of them. And those sets were recognizable, but they're also beautiful. I love the T206 set. I think the T206 set is beautiful, and I don't think there's anything more beautiful than the portrait cards from the T206 set. Some people hate them. I love them. The 33 Gowdy, love it. 52 tops, love it. There are a lot of sets that I find beautiful and specific cards within it that are beautiful. So I want good looking cards. I collect Warren Spahn, but I don't have every Warren Spahn card. Some Warren Spahn cards I don't think are pretty, but some of his cards are pretty, and I have those cards. So I guess my response, and again, I really don't even know. I'm literally, this is just stream of consciousness, no planning at all. I guess what I like are historic, important players when the card is attractive and from sets that I find important or attractive. I love the M101 cards. Some people don't. I like them. I guess that's probably the best way I could summarize how I collect. I'm starting to make my list of target stuff for the National, and all of the cards that are popping in my head right off the bat are cards where I don't just like the player or respect the history of the player, but I like the look, the actual look of the card. I don't know if I'll ever have a full player run of anyone, probably other than Greg Nettles. I don't think I'll ever have I guess that's not true because I have a Sammy Baugh run and I'm one card away from an Otto Graham run. So I guess I will have them, but only if I like all the cards will I have the full run. I'm not going to put a full run together just to buy a card that I need for the run if I don't also like the card. So I have to like the looks of the card. I have to at least like the player or respect the history that the player is for the sport. And generally, it's from a set or a set design that I'm drawn towards. I guess that's how I would kind of summarize it. And we'll see a week from today what I buy. Is that in line with what I'm describing right now? Time will tell.
And finally, our last question says, "Hey Greg, great episode as always. Future question for your list. What is your thought process and how do you evaluate the value of cards when buying raw at card shows? When finding a good-looking raw card, do you discount the grading fee or a certain percentage from the comps that you think it might grade? I always struggle with this at shows since the majority of dealers price their raw cards as if they were graded. And in most cases, they're adamant that their cards are going to get a certain grade and won't budge from their pricing. Some even get offended when I tell them that grading would facilitate negotiations, and in some cases, even yield them a better profit, assuming grading it does provide a better grade than they've got in mind. It's gotten to a point where I don't even look at raw cards at shows anymore just to avoid the conversation and not waste my energy. It just irritates me having to pay comps for a card that is not graded. In my opinion, dealers could make their lives easier and avoid all the drama by just grading their cards. Personally, I would just pay the grading fee if it would translate to the efficient negotiations and less stress. I'm definitely in your camp about the whole grading debate in that grading provides protection and peace of mind when I eventually leave my collection to my sons. Longtime subscriber, occasional commenter, still remember vividly when you experimented with the clock when answering questions, and we all know how long that lasted. Hope you're enjoying a work-free summer."
One of the ways to add value to a card is if you buy a card that isn't graded and then you get it graded and it gets a grade higher than the seller thought it would get, then you could turn around and sell it, right? You could turn around and sell it more easily, and because a lot of people want to buy graded stuff, not raw stuff. So a lot of people kind of stay away from raw stuff for the exact reasons that you just mentioned. And as a result, there's a lower demand for raw stuff. And I know a lot of you out there like, that's why I'm a raw collector. See, this is exactly right. I collect raw cards because I don't need there to be a number on it to know what it is. I respect all that. But from a value point of view, just from the value point of view only for a minute, the value point of view is generally going to be lower on raw than graded because a lot of people don't want to take the risk associated with an ungraded card. And I know there are people out there that won't be taken advantage of buying an ungraded card. They know the things to look for. They know how to make sure it is what it is. And that's great. But for a lot of collectors, for a lot of people, it's just safer to have it graded. And I know people are like, oh, come on, Greg. You know, PSA makes mistakes and SGC makes mistakes all the time. And they slab cards that have had alteration. It's not a perfect science. We know that. We talk about those all the time. But what getting cards graded does is it provides additional assurance of the card being what you think that it appears to be. It's just additional. It's not an insurance policy, but it helps. It helps you go, yep, it is what I think that it is, or approximately. Now, my dad buys raw cards at shows all the time, and then he'll get them graded. And sometimes he keeps them, and sometimes he sells them. And my dad has a pretty good eye. A lot of the times he'll buy a card that's priced like a 3 would be, and the card comes back a 5. And now he's added value to it. I've been to shows like we all have, and we've asked about raw cards, we've looked at raw cards, and the dealer says, oh man, that thing's at least a 7. And you're like, this card's not getting above a 4. That's because they own it and they're selling it. Of course they want, I mean, hey, when the listing agent for a house is not going to walk in and go, this is the worst house on the street. They're not going to say that. The listing agent is going to talk about all the best characteristics of the house. Was recently painted, just got new roof. You know, it's got a bigger lot than the others. It has beautiful new flooring. Like, they're going to point out all the good things about it. They're not going to point out the bad things about it. And they're going to try to make it appear to be at least what it is, if not more than it is. And I don't blame them for that. And hopefully people are not being disingenuous. Hopefully people are just being honest, but pointing out some of the positive characteristics. So I don't do a lot of this because it's a little, to me, I'm a fairly risk averse person. I am not a person who does a lot of risky things. I don't drive fast. I don't bungee jump or skydive. I don't do risky things. It's just not the way that I'm wired. I'm not comfortable with it, so I just don't do it. And my card hobby funds are pretty limited. And I, in a lot of cases, am not willing to risk some of my hobby funds to go through that process. And I have at times been burned. I have at times bought things that were ungraded, that didn't turn out to be quite what they appeared to be, or at least according to the grading companies. So that has happened to me, which makes me even less likely to do it again. So if it's something that you're interested in doing, I wouldn't use a substantial amount of your funds unless you're going to leave them raw. If you're planning on just leaving them raw and you like the looks of the card as it sits, then great. I guess what I would say is, based on my experience, the grading companies seem to see things that we don't see. So if the corners are rounded, we see that, the grading company is going to see it. If it's a little off center, we see that, the grading company is going to see that. They're going to see, the grading company is always going to see everything that you see. And they might see some additional things that you don't see from their equipment, their technology, their lighting, whatever. So what I would probably do is, if you're like, this card is at least going to come back at least a 5, I would probably pay the price of a 4, because you're probably missing something, because they're going to see everything that you see, and they might see something in addition to that. So if you think a card would grade a 5, I wouldn't pay more than 4 prices. That's just me. But again, I'm a risk-averse guy. I'm a guy who, most of the bigger purchases that I make, the cards are already graded. Small stuff doesn't matter to me as much, so I do buy ungraded stuff. But I don't know. I hope that helps, at least some. Guys, week from today, National, next week. Within the next week, I'm going to be throwing multiple videos at you. Keep your eye out for stuff. Again, I'll have a national preview before The National, which day, I don't know. Will it replace the Monday video? Maybe. We'll see. But keep an eye out. I might drop things different dates than I usually do over the next few days to week and a half. All right. If you have a question for an upcoming episode, don't hesitate. Down below in the comments, simply ask it. And I look forward to seeing the things that you all want to hear about.